you are visible to me. Sorry, I am visible to you. Okay, is it okay? Is the screen
Yes,
work?
sir.
Is the screen okay for you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So because I used two methods to share the file. One I do through browser itself, and one only the window. Okay. So welcome everybody. Today we are going to discuss shortly about the nutrition of grazing animals. And the nutrition means that the principle is the same from all kind of feeding systems to supply nutrients, either by still feeding or either by grazing. Grazing is the cheapest or the best source of nutrition because animals can choose the nutrient dense pasture parts. Okay, this is the benefit, but the utilization and economics would be a compromising thing for grazing animals. Okay, the stocking rate and stocking density would be the matters to be compromised during grazing animals, but the way of supplying nutrient is the same, and efficiency or the economy of feeding would be much higher during stop feeding. So anyway, these are the normal consequences or the general consequences of grazing, right? So in both system, still feeding and for grazing animals, the important point is the feed intake or the diet selection, right? If we still feed, we say feed intake, or if you graze animals, we say that intake is based by diet selection, right? So these are the two driving factors that makes the nutritional variation in animals, and that drives to animal production and reproduction. Okay, it is simple that the feed ingested, the diet selected, when it is digested, it is later absorbed, and these are available for production functions: milk, meat, and wool. Okay, and in the absorption process, that is held. The principle is the same, and I don't repeat much from your previous course because it's just to remind it. The principle is the same. Either you graze or either you still feed the animals. Okay, then the intake of fermentable material in forage is enhanced by increase within limits of the amounts of escape or biphase bypass protein in the diet. So animal performance ke huncha, what is mass readily fermented in the rumen would not be available for growth and reproduction because that is lost mostly in the form of ammonia, right? So if it is digested or if it absorbed well in the intestine, that portion of protein component from the forage is utilized for production. That's the fact. Okay, and the efficiency of feed conversion increases again within limits as the amount of bypass starch increases. Okay, starch is also mass fermented or very fast fermented in the rumen, and that would not be utilized as a source of energy in the absorption process in the intestine. Okay, so both bypass starch and bypass protein, they have a basic role for animal performance. Okay, then nutrients are required for maintenance functions. We say the fatty overhead and the production commodities. Okay, and the energy intake required for resting or maintenance is the proportional to metabolic body weight. Right? The metabolic body weight maintenance cost that's the same. Right? Then we use to measure as live weight, superpower power 0.75. That indicates the metabolic body size of animals. As I mean, metabolic body size, but we estimate the nutrient requirements of grazing animals. Okay, even it is a very oldest method, and for some instances we also use this power 0.50 or sometimes 0.80. Right? It depends on the body weight. Okay, then it's true that energy, protein, and mineral requirements for production are the other substitutes to those required for maintenance and production. So either you still feed the animal, you have to first maintain the maintenance cost of animals. Second one, then after the production cost of the animals. So the maintenance cost goes to breathing, maintenance cost goes to maintaining body temperature. That's is the maintenance cost, right? Or the cost of energy cost of requirement during resting phase. Sometimes we say the maintenance cost, right? So then later the cost goes for production, that mainly for that needs a lot of most part, about 60% of the cost, total cost of the energy goes to production, while about 40% goes to maintenance. Right? Within normal large animal ko scale, but it depends on type, breed, genotype, class. That means working class, production class, dry class. Okay, class भनेको त्यो. Then size. That means it is body weight, and physiological state. That means growing, gestating or lactating, and age of the animals. All influence nutritional requirements for the maintenance and production. So these are the things because to be considered while you graze animals for providing sufficient energy intake. So if you go to there are some process illustrated here in this draft, and it is said the maintenance energy is decreased when live weight is increased. Okay, and maintenance energy is it is somewhat proportional to age, but it declines to the age. Okay, then maintenance energy is increased during pregnancy. They are the three stages: live weight, body weight, age, and pregnancy. Okay, then the live weight gain depends mainly on the interrelationship between energy and protein delivered to the body tissues from the rumen and the small intestine. So if we go to again, there is a model: pasture growth, diet selection, animal metabolism, and animal production. Okay, so pasture sward quality also governs all the things. Then the selection process of the animals, the habit of the animals also governs for these things, and later the diet quality. First, the physical factors and the intrinsic factors determines the diet selection process. Then its quality and quantity, and third is metabolism and its availability to animal products. They are general pathways of the environment, how pasture is adapted to provide the resource or energy for the animal production. Okay, then for intake we do estimates in grazing animals. It's very easy. Let me see, where is the whiteboard? Is there any whiteboard? No. No. If here is whiteboard, I don't know what. No. Okay, I do write in the message box. Please follow it. Okay, for estimation of dry matter intake in grazing animals, we do calculate DMI. The dry matter intake equals, sorry. Oh, sorry. कुन ल्याब युज गरेँ मैले है dry matter intake equals. Please write down, it's very important while you write in exam. Equals bite size multiplied by that's multiplied by bite rate multiplied by duration of grazing. So this is the general way we do calculate the dry matter intake of grazing animals. एकचोटि चढ्दा कति चाहिँ फिड मटेरियल चाहिँ बाइट गर्छ है, अनि 1 मिनेटमा कति बाइट रेट भनेको 1 मिनेटमा कति चाहिँ चोटि त्यसले बाइट गर्न सक्छ र टोटल ग्रेजिङ आवर कति छ. बेस्ड अन दिस वी डु एस्टिमेट डायमेटर इन्टेक अफ ग्रेजिङ एनिमल्स. Okay, that's the general formula we do. DMI equals kg per day equals bite size, bite rate into duration of grazing. Okay, यो चाहिँ सबै क्लासको एनिमलको लागि त्यही हो. Sheep, goats, cattle, dairy cattle, beef cattle, you can use the same formula. Okay, so then in feed intake, feed intake is important once it for to estimate amount of forage and offer that to governs the feed quality or the total dry matter digestibility. Okay, then grazing time, amount of quality of feed supplements, harmful plant substances present, the plant intrinsic factors. है, जसको जुन प्लान्ट पोइजनस छ त्यो प्लान्ट चाहिँ एनिमलले एभोइड्स ग्रेजिङ है. खास गरी ग्रेजिङ रेजिस्टेन्स मेकानिजम तीनटा पाथवे छ. वान इज ग्रेजिङ टोलरेन्स हो, ग्रेजिङ एभोइडेन्स हो, एन्ड रेजिस्टेन्स है. टोलरेन्स, एभोइडेन्स, रेजिस्टेन्स, दे आर द 3 स्ट्राटेजिज अफ प्लान्ट सर्भाइभल. ओके, तिम्रो हार्भेस्ट सर्भाइभल, पास्चर सर्भाइभलको 3टा स्ट्राटेजी हुन्छ के. वान इज रेजिस्टेन्स, तिमीले चराउँदा पनि के गर्छ त्यो रेजिस्ट गर्छ. एन्ड टोलरेन्स, त्यो चाहिँ उसले चाहिँ कुनै मोडिफाइड स्ट्रक्चर बनाउँछ, जस्तो राई ग्रास, व्हाइट क्लोभर. जब तिमीले टप पोर्सन चराउँछौ द्याट, जस्तो राई ग्रास चाहिँ इट प्रोड्युसेस ए लट अफ टिलर्स हो. व्हाइट क्लोभरले के गर्छ, द्याट प्रोड्युसेस ए लट अफ स्टोलन्स है. दिस इज द काइन्ड अफ टोलरेन्स राइट. अनि एभोइडेन्स भनेको सम स्पेसिस दे हाइभ फल्स, दे प्रोड्युस फल्स. Some species they start to deposit some toxic metabolites, right? Plant poison or deposit on the. This is the kind of harvest, the grazing avoidance of the harvests. These सबै material पनि तिम्रो feed intake मा असर गर्छ. Then animal live weight, age and physiological stage. Okay. The total amount of feed and offer, the bulkiness of the feed also governs the feed intake. And the quality, okay, then the total quality and the total digestible matter, right? Just to timro cellulose ko matra badi cha bhane that would be more digestible. Okay, hemicellulose cha bhane है, that would be more, that would be partially digestible. So when the harvest composition is composed of mass lignin, then it is not digestible at all, right? Then if the harvest materials has more lipid, sugar and protein, it would be digestible, but there is a mass fermentation in the rumen, and that is not much available for as a source of energy in the animal system. Okay, because the resident microbes present in the rumen, they usually ferment these soluble products into other products, right? Lipid, fat or sugar, or they could be alcohols, proteins would be released out in the form of ammonia. Okay, and these are the things to be considered in terms of digestibility. Okay, then pasture and offer and allowance also govern. That means grazing time also. It depends on the pasture allowance. Okay, here is one figure and it describes the forage intake increases with the grazing allowance. Okay, तिमी जति धेरै बेर लाग्न चराउन सक्छौ त्यसको इन्टेक पनि फिड इन्टेक पनि बढ्छ, right? But it's the efficiency of allowance would be but digestibility would be poor, and it depends on the growth stage of the harvest. Okay, your forage allowance बढाउँदाखेरि चाहिँ इन्टेक चाहिँ बढ्छ, but it depends on the digestible part of the, but digestibility would be a compromising factor due to available botanical the growth stage. So अलि young stage मा छ भने in temperate मा के हुन्छ खासै फरक हुँदैन. The tropical forages के हुन्छ, they are rapidly maturing species, right? and at initial stage they have much water content than the temperate grasses. Okay, त्यस्तो बेलामा के हुन्छ, you need to supply other feedstuffs or some supplements you have to give, the concentrates, minerals you have to provide. Okay, but in temperate grasses there is growth rate is similar, but the tendency they have very high crude protein and soluble components, and they can be readily changed in the form of energy. Okay, that is the simple consequences of this. And if you compare these digestible proportion of the different stages and different grain products, and the range comes from at least 10 to 90%. कसैको digestible छैन. The temperate grasses, they may be 100% digestible when they are young, and when they are young, the tropical grasses may be up to 70% digestible. Okay, then crop byproducts may be digestible up to 80%. Oh, and if they are very rough elements, they are the rough edges, very bulk rough edges, then digestibility would be very poor, up to 30% for sugarcane tops. Sugarcane baggage, peanut hulls, rice hulls, they could be up to 20% only. Okay, so this figure, please try to connect these two figures. The forage allowance permits the animal for better intake, but the digestibility would be compromised. Okay, you have to consider this. Okay, then it is clear that I described the tropical and temperate species. Then if you say the digestibility of grasses and legumes, animal ke garcha bhane, if there is a well mix of grasses and legumes in the pasture, animals still tend to select grasses rather legumes. Okay, animal legumes चाहिँ खान्छ नखाने हैन, तर and that used to select more grasses because अब के हुन्छ त्यो अब that's the animal habit, right? जस्तो तिम्रो mixed grasses मा mixed crop land मा animal छोड्यो भने legumes could be topped off up to 5% only. Grass legume mixer plot मा तिमीले animal grazing छोड्यो भने जस्तो sheep, goat, that's basically for goat tend to select only 5% of the legume elements. That's very interesting. Okay, then if you talk to the digestibility, the digestibility of grasses is better than the legumes always. Okay, then the intake of forage is highly correlated with the digestibility of the diet selected. Okay, then just to look at the dry matter digestibility of grasses को legume temperate tropical grasses हेऱ्यो भने digestibility of temperate grasses is always better than the tropical grasses. है, त्यसमा पनि अर्को कुरा, the digestibility of grasses is better than legumes, and within grass temperate grasses are better than the tropical grasses. Okay, the figure describes here the lower digestibility of tropical compared with temperate grasses results in lower rates of intakes by animals grazing tropical forages. You know के हुन्छ, and tropical area को animal को feed intake चाहिँ that's always smaller than that of the temperate animals, temperate cow. तिम्रो एउटै breed जस्तो Holstein, if you give tropical forages, it has lower intake than the if you offered next time the temperate forages. So if you talk to digestibility, and here is a example that describes see the digestibility of green pasture on our in relation to the amount of available green pasture. तिम्रो के green pasture जति धेरै available भयो त्यसको digestible proportion चाहिँ घट्दै जान्छ, but intake would be जति digestibility poor भयो intake चाहिँ because that has to store nutrient. Okay, digestibility, but intake would be a compromising factor, but all would be a compromising factor. Okay. So then another thing contained of the herbicides that lowers the intake, okay? But energy and protein supplements enhance it. त्यसैले के गर्नुपर्छ भन्दाखेरि if the pasture is in the tender stage, it would not be well enough to manage their time supply with for the protein energy supplement. Okay, but the objective is the legume incorporation in the grass mix lands, so you can save the supplement price. Okay, so then our interesting parts are then here is the effective dry matter content of sorghum silage on voluntary intake by lactating cows. यसमा पनि छ टेम्परेट ट्रपिकल स्पेसिसको यसमा पनि हेर साइलेज ड्राई म्याटर बढ्दाखेरि चाहिँ इन्टेक चाहिँ बढ्छ है यसमा त्यस्तो के छ भने if the silage has too much water content then its intake is less because water maintains the space that has no bulk free available in the stomach. तिम्रो स्टोमक पनि खाली हुनु पर्यो के एनिमलको इन्टेक गर्नलाई ओके one example how moisture content of the feed is responsible for intake. Here is one example, figure 311 in this literature. Then another figure shows there is the strong relationship between grazing time of sheep, rate of forage intake, and forage yield. Okay? Just so if you allow sheep grazing for a long time, okay, the forage yield is reduced. Okay? Then rate of forage intake would be increased if it is grain, and intake of dead matter is always less. Right? Sheep habit by nature, sheep has in the behavior to select the green portion only. As sheep it is a non-selective species, right? It is a browser species. It is not a browser, but it is a continuous grazer, right? But in pasture land, sheep tends to show these characteristics to select the green portion only. Okay. Then and the preference of animals is always to high nutrient density plant portions. यो अर्को पनि छ यसमा theory of grazing मा जुन plant part मा बढी nutrient density हुन्छ or mostly we say protein composition, this part first is utilized by animals. Every grazing animal, this is applied for all kind of grazing animals. This is how the grazing time is influencing the intake of the grazing animals. Then if we compare, then in early spring, the forage biomass is less, okay, and animals tend to graze more time. But during progressive growth in summer, this time, the forage biomass is more and the grazing time would be reduced due to much availability of the biomass. Then another figure also shows here the association between the proportion of daily grazing occurring between morning and afternoon, milking and daily maximum temperature. Grazing is most preferred in morning if the temperature is high during summer. Okay, but in winter there is no difference. If you check this and this sequence temperature and it's getting grazing time from AM to PM milking. Okay, then percent of daily grazing. So you can see the percent of daily grazing is always higher in winter during temperature for 15 to 20 degrees centigrade. This is a suitable grazing temperature for temperate cattle, big cattle, the high production cattle. Then after high temperature, this grazing is not much preferred. Okay, so the heat, because at high temperature the heat stress may be a likely factor to reduce the feed intake of animals. The grazing behavior of that alters the grazing behavior, right? And besides the effect of grazing behavior, extreme low and high temperatures can directly cause lamb death, though exposure, especially in open grasslands. हाम्रोमा त यस्तो lamb death हुने कुनै किसिमको घटना हुँदैन, but in Australia, Australia is very popular for lamb production, sheep production, right? But in summer, due to very high temperature, there are some cases of lamb death annually. Okay. Then other factor, then how the plant intrinsic, the herbage intrinsic factors affect the intake. Right? They are the inorganic compounds and minerals, nitrate, copper and selenium. यो धेरै भएको प्लान्ट चाहिँ खाँदैन है, जस्तो गोबरको वरिपरि किन एनिमल चर्दैन भन्यो भने That's the reason, because that has much nitrate composition in the plant. Okay, है जहाँ धेरै अप्टिमिस्टिकली के भन्छ एकदमै धेरै कन्सन्ट्रेसन भएको नाइट्रेट कम्पोजिसन अथवा नाइट्रोजन कन्सन्ट्रेसन भएको फिड पनि के अरे फरेस्ट पनि एनिमलले चर्दैन है बट कम्पेरेटिभली इफ यु फर्टिलाइज comparatively animals tend to select more nutrient dense parts चाहिँ हो तर artificially if the nitrogen composition is very high then this part is also likely to not preferred by animals. Then other factors are the harmful substances are organic compounds, for example pneumocyan, alicyclics, saponins and glycosides. They are also they also avoid animals for grazing. Okay, then if you go to the temperate environment, if you graze animals to ryegrass pasture, there may be some fungal toxins, mycotoxins, microbial toxins may also hamper the feed intake. Then hungry or stressed animals can die when growing on the range of plant species that are either intrinsically toxic or are toxic at certain times under certain conditions. जस्तो नेपालको सुर्खेत जिल्ला छ नि सुर्खेतमा चाहिँ we believe the selenium content in the soil is very high, and there may be some grazing avoidance of pastures by animals. पराल पनि एनिमलले धेरै खान किन मान्दैन किनभने it has lot of selenium. Okay, जस्तो अर्को कुरा पनि के छ भने तिमीले नाइट्रोजन फर्टिलाइजर युज गरेको फरेज भन्दा नाइट्रोजन फर्टिलाइजर युज नगरेको फरेज चाहिँ एनिमल्स टेन्ड टु ग्रेज मोर है तिम्रो नर्मली के हुन्छ एनिमलको बिहेभियर भने नर्मली द ग्रेजिङ एनिमल्स प्रिफर हाई न्युट्रिएन्ट डेन्सिटी पार्ट्स बट दे डोन्ट प्रिफर मच नाइट्रोजन कन्सन्ट्रेसन्स बाई आर्टिफिसियल मिन्स जहाँ युरिन जस्तो युरिया जस्तो क्याटल ग्रेजिङ ल्यान्डमा के हुन्छ युरिया एन्ड युरिन डिपोजिसन इज नर्मल राइट and the dung deposited area they are discarded by grazing animals, right? You can observe in any grassland in Chittagong, right? So that's one example. जस्तो अरु के छ भने जस्तो इफेक्ट अफ कन्सन्ट्रेट सप्लिमेन्ट अन इन्टेक जस्तो यो पनि हार्मफुल सब्स्टान्स हो तर फीड सप्लिमेन्टले के गर्छ इफ यु तिमी फीड सप्लिमेन्ट गरेको क्याटल र अनसप्लिमेन्ट फिड खुवाएको चाहिँ फरेज खुवाएको क्याटललाई सँगै चरायो भने देयर इज अ ड्रास्टिक डिफरेन्स सिग्निफिकेन्ट डिफरेन्स इन देयर फिड इन्टेक अर्ग्यानिक म्याटर इन्टेक है त्यसपछि कन्सन्ट्रेट सप्लाई गरेको के हुन्छ फिडमा के हुन्छ भने फरेज इन्टेक चाहिँ लो हुन्छ है तर टोटल इन्टेक चाहिँ बढ्न सक्छ त्यो खालको एनिमलहरुमा पर केजी लाइभ वेट टोटल इन्टेक चाहिँ बढ्छ तर टोटल फरेज इन्टेक चाहिँ घट्छ है टोटल इन्टेक भनेको बोथ कन्सन्ट्रेट प्लस के अरे फरेज चाहिँ बढ्न सक्छ ड्यू टु कन्सन्ट्रेट पार्ट मस बिकज एनिमल प्रिफर इट ड्यू टु द न्युट्रिएन्ट डेन्सिटी राइट बट इफ यु टक ओन्ली फर फरेज इन्टेक देन फरेज इन्टेक वुड बी रिड्युस्ड हो देन डाइजेस्टिबिलिटी इज अल्सो द डाइजेस्टिबल अर्ग्यानिक म्याटर इन्टेक वुड बी इन्क्रिज ड्यू टु मस अर्ग्यानिक सब्स्टान्सेस इन द कन्सन्ट्रेट्स तर के हुन्छ भने त्यही पार्ट चाहिँ फरेज इन्टेक चाहिँ घट्छ टोटल इन्टेक र डाइजेस्टिबल अर्ग्यानिक म्याटर इन्टेक चाहिँ कन्सन्ट्रेट सप्लाई गर्दा बढ्न सक्छ एन्ड दिस इज द मोर कन्सिडरेबल पार्ट टु बी थिङ एन्ड अनेस्टली दिस इज द मोस्ट इकोनोमिक पार्ट टु बी थर्ड फर इकोनोमिक क्याटल प्रोडक्सन त्यसैले क्याटललाई धेरै कन्सन्ट्रेट फिड खुवाउनुहुन्न है कन्सन्ट्रेट बढी खुवायो भने के हुन्छ फरेज इन्टेक लो हुन्छ एन्ड द कन्सिक्वेन्सेस अफ दिज आर देयर इज चेन्ज इन मिल्क कम्पोजिसन जस्तो तिमीलाई मिल्क त्यसपछि के आउँछ फ्याट भन्दा अनि तिम्रो कन्सन्ट्रेट फिड बढी खायो भने प्रोपिनेटको मात्रा चाहिँ बढी आउँछ सुगरको मात्रा बढ्न सक्छ है सुगर र प्रोटिन बढ्न सक्छ तर फ्याटको मात्रा घट्न सक्छ बट द बेस्ट प्रायोरिटी इन क्याटल मिल्क and every milk in Asia is that is fat not other products है त्यसैले के गर्न सक्छ तिमी हाई फरेज इन्टेक ग्रास बेस्ड फरेज सिस्टममा जाने भने यु शुड रिड्युस द कन्सन्ट्रेट सप्लिमेन्ट टु क्याटल्स ओके but that concentrate level could go up to the maintenance level only, right? Production level, not for maintenance. because forage is enough for the maintenance of these kind of animals. So here is another also one figure that describes voluntary intake of grass with or without protein supplement. Okay, तिम्रो protein supplement गरेको feedमा के छ भने त्यो signal grass को feedमा चाहिँ voluntary intake increases with the substitution by the protein. है forage supplement गर्दा चाहिँ बढ्छ तर फरेजको मात्रा चाहिँ घटिरहेको हुन्छ के त्यो चाहिँ के भने सिग्नल ग्रास इज भेरी पुअर न्युट्रिएन्ट डेन्सिटी कन्टेनिङ ग्रास ओके तिम्रो त्यही पनि के हुन्छ तिम्रो भेरी लो क्वालिटीको ग्रासेसहरुमा चाहिँ तिम्रो कन्सन्ट्रेट सप्लाई गरेको छ भने भोलुन्टरी इन्टेक चाहिँ बढ्छ फेरि त्यही ग्रासको भोलुन्टरी इन्टेक चाहिँ बढ्छ बट इफ यु अलो कन्सन्ट्रेट फर लङ टाइम द कन्सन्ट्रेट मच अल वान्स that declines the daily silage intake of animals but also that also lead decline total daily diameter intake तिम्रो एकदम लो क्वालिटी ग्रासेसमा चाहिँ कन्सन्ट्रेट युज गर्नु फाइदा हुन्छ तर ग्रासेस पछि दोज हैव सफिसिएन्ट क्रुड प्रोटिन जस्तो डेयरी काटको लागि कति क्रुड प्रोटिन कन्टेन्ट रिक्वायरमेन्ट थाहा छ that should not be less than 14% and that's only more 22%. If you 60%, this is ideal content for dairy animals. Right? Then you can supply okay, but the consequences of concentrate all ones that is not profitable for in terms of diameter intake of forages and total intake. Okay. So, other things in summary, we can say the intake at the per unit kg of live weight gain, the feed intake should be increased, and the digestibility of forages that needs to be increased. But that live weight gain would be reduced when the total fatness in the body is increased. Live weight gain burden live weight burden then the total fatness also is a compromising factor. जस्तो जब फ्याटनेस एनिमलमा फ्याट बढ्छ नि लाइभ वेट गेनको ग्रोथ रेशियो चाहिँ घट्न थाल्छ है बट त्यो बेलामा त्यो हुन अगाडि के हुन्छ बोथ इन्टेक एन्ड डाइजेस्टिबिलिटी अफ फरेजेस वुड बी इन्क्रिज्ड मिल्क प्रोडक्सनमा द ट्रेन्ड इज मोर अर लेस सिमिलर फर इन्टेक एन्ड डाइजेस्टिबिलिटी बट एट लेटर स्टेज अफ ल्याक्टेसन द मिल्क प्रोडक्सन वुड बी रिड्युस्ड ओके त्यस बेलामा के हुन्छ देन सप्लिमेन्टेसन अर एनी काइन्ड अफ हाई फरेज supplementation is not beneficial at the later stage of the at the closing stage of the milk. Then for wool growth, okay, wool growth is directly proportional to protein intake. Right? The wool growth saying total energy intake sanga bhanda pani that is much proportional to crude protein content of the diet or the protein content of the diet. Right? Then it is during for higher wool growth, the intake should be increased and the digestibility of forages should also be increased. Okay, these are the summary of these crucial points, the generalized responses in daily weight gain, milk production, wool growth to some feed and animal physiological variables. Okay. Then other things we can also discuss on production efficiency about composition, milk composition. Okay. Then utilization of energy in the diet, okay. Then another is energy retention in the body. है जस्तो जति तिमी एनर्जी चाहिँ खुवाउँछौ एनर्जी डेन्सिटी भएको फरेज खुवाउँछौ then energy retention in animals is also increased. Okay, and the energy retention is a major part that leads to early fatness of the animals. Okay, then if you increase crude protein proportion in the forage or if there is high crude protein in the forage, then protein absorption is also increased in the small intestine. जति फीडमा चाहिँ प्रोटिनको डेन्सिटी हाई छ त्यसको रिटेन्सन पनि बढ्छ एब्जर्प्सन पनि बढ्छ र जति एनर्जी कन्सन्ट्रेसन बढी छ त्यसको रिटेन्सन पनि बढ्छ ओके ओके देन these are the normal steps I can describe for this section and I let you reading this manuscript well and for dairy production, wool production and meat production. Okay, principal part ke ho in nutrition of grazing animals. The nutrient density governs the intake and digestibility of animals. One line summary. And second line summary is the diameter intake of animals would be increased to the frequency of grazing, the time of grazing, and bite rate and bite size could also be hampered by, could be determined by the plant intrinsic factors as well as the soil factors. That means fertility of the nutrient density of the factors. And grazing abundance determines the intake. Okay, there are only plant ma ke huncha, timro grazing ma ke huncha, animal habit, plant composition, त्यसपछि के हुन्छ, animal to growth cycle, growth stage, breed type, has तीन चारवटा कुरा चाहिँ you have to mention for the grazing of the nutrition of grazing animals. Okay. So the major important part in this lecture is you have to summarize your presentation, this lecture yourself, and it is already a little text. It is not very heavy to describe. It has how many pages? It has only 14 pages, but just go to first few pages. Right? मैले जहाँसम्म highlight गरेको छु, please read up to this point. Right? जस्तो intake, तिम्रो dairy animal को intake में के हुन्छ, जति crude protein चाहिँ diet में concentration छ, intake पनि बढ्छ dairy animal में, है. जस्तो अर्को sheep में पनि त्यही हो. And जस्तो at the खास तिम्रो के भन्छ, cattle मा we describe the transition stage, है. त्यही कुरा चाहिँ sheep goat मा we describe it as phase feeding. Okay. अनि ट्रान्जिसन स्टेज भनेको गाई ब्याउनु भन्दा क्याटल को डेलिभरी के भन्छ, पार्चुलेसन भन्दा 3 महिना अगाडिको स्टेज र 3 महिना भन्दा पछाडिको स्टेज, because 3 months after parturition is the peak milk yield time, and this is the most period in cattle that may be hampered due to the nutrient deficiency. Okay. जब ट्रान्जिसन पिरियडमा के हुन्छ, अगाडिकोलाई पोस्ट काल्भिङ पिरियड भन्छ, त्यसपछि काल्भिङ पिरियड, त्यसपछि मिल्क पिक यिल्ड पिरियड. दिज आर 3 स्टेप्स. तीनटा स्टेजमा न्युट्रिएन्ट चाहिँ डेन्सिटी पुर्याउन सकेन भने एनिमल्स टेन्ड टु प्रोड्युस लो एन्ड देयर रिप्रोडक्टिभ इफिसिएन्सी वुड बी लोअर, है. जस्तो पास्चर एलोवेन्स एज अल्सो बेनिफिट इफ यु एलोन grazing maximum time and feed an offer, then the post-calving anesthesia period would also be reduced. है. गाई भैँसी बाली नलाग्ने चाहिँ के भन्छ, the reproduction cycle मा नजाने problem चाहिँ that could be reduced. है. Then that means the pregnancy rate would be higher. है. Okay, there are normal things that sort descriptive figures. I don't go through it. Hello, who is talking? What's the problem? Sorry. Are you listening me? Hello, everyone.
Yes, sir.
Okay. While you text I upload गरिदिन्छु, please start reading from the Google Classroom. Okay. It is a very simplified text.